Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Madam President. Thank you very much. I joked with Senator Logan, knowing I was going to speak after him, that I wasn't going to have anything left to say, but it was truer than I expected. I think he's laid out the case very clearly to my mind. And, you know, he spoke for a minute about what got him into politics. I'll say the same thing. What got me back into politics, about 10 years ago, I guess, I started to grow very concerned about the condition of the country and of the state in particular, and felt that I had been remiss and selfish in holding myself away from it for so long because of the frustrations that I had found in my previous involvement with it. And it was an odd experience that no sooner did the notion of returning to it occur to me than the possibility started to present itself. And in short order, I found myself back here. And I ran the campaign in 2010 with, in big letters on all my pieces, "It's time to face facts," because it was so clear to me that our state was in a desperate economic situation with a crushing debt, with unfunded obligations, with a staggering economy, with high taxes that were discouraging investment and innovation and relocation of business and the sustenance of business here in Connecticut. And for 7 years, I've watched with frustration as, in my opinion, we have remained behind the curve in addressing these problems. I feel that, to take Governor Malloy as an example, I feel that if he had had the attitude he has today, when he took office in 2011, the state would be in a very different situation. He needed, and we needed, to start getting our debt under control quickly, not to raise taxes, not to continue down that path, and to put an end to spending increases. I think he recognizes that now as much as anybody. You know, he said in an article recently, if I had a magic wand, I would have done much more. And I think by that magic wand, he's not meaning the magic wand to have the power to do more necessarily, but the foresight at the moment to know how much more needed to be done. That article, incidentally, was not published by my friends at National Review. It was in the Daily Beast. Another very discouraging assessment of Connecticut's situation. I don't know how many of you have read it. One of the most, it has a number of very clear and terrible facts and statistics in it. For instance, their observation that the percentage of our debt, of our budget, which is devoted to debt obligations, has increased from 12% in 1997 to 31% today. And that since Governor Malloy took office, it has gone up 10% a year on average, year after year. In the last 2 years, we've seen our income tax receipts actually drop. Knowing that fact, knowing the amount of our budget that is now devoted to our past obligations, and the poor performance of our economy today, I don't see any evidence that our state is going to be in any better position to pay the raises which are included in this contract, which is before us, in the third, fourth, and fifth years than we are to pay them in the next 2 years. And I'm afraid that what we're doing, if we approve this contract, is once again trading short-term relief for a long-term obligation which we can't meet. And that is exactly what has put us in this mess, doing that time after time. Governor Malloy came into office rightly bemoaning the way in which previous governors and previous legislatures had tied his hands. But we sit here today on the verge of doing the same thing to the next governor, and maybe the governor to come after that. Why would we do that? Why do we make it impossible for our state to change direction, and impossible for legislators who succeed us to respond to the demands of their voters for us to go in a different direction by putting us on a course that we can't change? In the course of this debate, and I think this is the most important vote that I have been here for, partly because of the divided nature of the legislature. But I think this is a vote that's going to define where we're going this year and where we're going for many years to come. I've listened to my colleagues on the other side, and I've wanted to respond to almost every one of them at some point. I feel like I'd like to do it like Mystery Science Theater, where I could sit in the audience and just be a peanut gallery for it. But Senator Leone said, how can we refuse this contract at this moment? Let me say, this is the first moment we have the opportunity to pass judgment on this contract. It's our obligation, if we think it's wrong, to turn it down right now, today. And we don't have to accept a deal which we believe, or which we know in our hearts, we aren't going to be able to afford in the long run. I'd also say much is made of the fact that the contract was negotiated in good faith. It's not a matter of the faith that a contract was negotiated with. I feel no more obliged by that than I would expect union members necessarily to accept a contract because it was negotiated in good faith. We all have to make a judgment of what's put before us. I was a real estate agent once upon a time for a little while. If I worked something out with the seller's agent, let's say, and went back to my buyer, he had the right to say yes or no to it. That's just the way it works. And he had to do that based on his own financial ability to meet his debt. And I'm not unhappy about this vote, however it comes out. That's not what my life is about. But I'm concerned about the state of Connecticut. And I know that my constituents are terrified by the situation that we're in. And they are alarmed by the fact that we would accept something like this that ties our hands. I don't enjoy making gloomy prognoses either. Senator Winfield earlier talked, and several people have talked about the fact that that if some of us weren't so negative, things would go better. We're not here to be cheerleaders for the state. We're here to give direction to the state. We're here to try to heal the state. If I go to my doctor, I don't want her to tell me that everything's fine if it's not. I want her to be honest with me. I want her to tell me what needs doing. And if it's hard, all the better, all the more important that she tell it to me directly. We might want to recognize the virtue of being positive, but we can't forget the virtue of being honest. We cannot cure this state until we recognize that we are going in the wrong direction and have been doing so for a long, long time, under both parties, under many different legislatures. That's history, as Senator Leone says. But the question is, what do we do now? This deal would guarantee that we continue to go in the wrong direction. And it will make changing direction much, much more difficult for those who come after it. I would only ask that my colleagues who share in my opinion of this join me in opposing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Will you remark first?